Hello and welcome to Extraordinary Women TV. I'm your host, Shannon Skinner. Well, I've got a great show lined up for you today. I've got two guests who are dedicated to empowering women in very different ways. In the first half hour, you're going to meet Marcy Berg, who is the founder of Mortgages for Women. So we'll be talking about mortgages. Later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top success tip. You'll hear Marcy's. In the second half of the show, we'll be talking about women in transition. So if you are a woman in transition, you're going to want to watch this, so stay right there. Marcy Berg, my first guest, hello.
Hi Shannon, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me to be here today.
Oh, it's great having you here, and really appreciate your time. Now, you're the founder of Mortgages for Women. You are dedicated to helping women get a mortgage. What a wonderful cause, I think.
Thank you. It's a dream, and it's a great job, and it comes with a great clientele.
Now, you started your career in banking.
Yes, I did.
You had a long-standing, successful career in banking.
I did, and I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. And the banks are very good at training you. There's a lot of positive things about the banks. And I took what they taught me, and I was able to leave. When I left, I realized that, the banks were transitioning from a service point of view to a sales atmosphere. And as a woman, the atmosphere didn't speak to me anymore, and I felt I wasn't alone. So I set out and I did the research, and I found out I was right. So I said, well, I'll just take a step back with what I know, and I started Mortgages for Women.
Hey, you're a mother.
I am.
You spent a lot of years, working really hard and raising your children, and you got burned out.
Oh,
working in the bank.
I did. I burned out working in the bank. The hours were incredible, and I was missing my children growing up. I had one of the very first work-from-home jobs that the banks offered, and the lines were blurring between the bank world and my family, and my kids quickly learned that when the phone rang there was no noise, because I said they can't know I'm working from home. So it was very stressful, and I realized that work from home just meant more hours, and I couldn't do it.
Well, that was progressive for the bank at the time. I mean,
it was progressive, and they gave it a good try.
Right.
At that time, when they first tried it, it came with a long list of rules and restrictions, but it did move forward.
Like you can't work in your pajamas?
Well, we had to have a separate workspace that was separate from the house, and we had to have a separate entrance. Not that anybody ever came there, but we just had to have a separate entrance. There was no rules about pajamas. I think that was just sort of a given. But it was not like today. Today it's acceptable. If you call someone and you hear their children in the background, it's almost a nice feeling.
But you burnt out.
I did.
You did. You worked really hard, and you were really dedicated to having a great career and raising your children.
Yeah, and they kept raising the bar on our sales levels. So we were responsible for booking business, and we were measured constantly. And and if it wasn't enough, there was always more, and it was always pushing the window, and taking us to meetings and teaching us the scripts that would help us sell more. And I just couldn't do it. I just felt that doesn't sit well with me. So I made the decision to leave.
Was it scary?
It was terrifying, and it's still terrifying. I mean, I have days when I sit there and I think, well, I did what? And I walk by a bank and I see everybody in there working away, and I think, wow, and they have a pension. And I think, oh, but it's still scary, but it's very, very rewarding. And, I know I could never go back.
Now, so let's just talk a little bit about what Mortgages for Women is and what your services are.
Well, when I was in the bank, I was doing mortgages for them. And so I was, and my job was to go around and convince real estate agents to send business to our bank, and I would do the mortgages. And at first it was I worked with construction sites, and I worked, so I did a lot of that, and construction mortgages and that sort of thing, and it was a lot of fun. And then what happened, they transitioned into sales roles, so we ended up, they sort of came out with a commission structure for the job. Well, once that hit, of course, they hire superstars, and somebody's always the top salesperson, and you have to strive to be that person because that person is held out as the example of what the bank expects. And it was transitioning from customer satisfaction to the numbers that were going on the books, and it just for me that didn't work. It just, the problem that I learned with the problem with financial services, the banks were transitioning over into a model where they had these financial services they were designing to be sold by experts.
Right. Yeah.
And the goal was for that expert to get you to pay as much as possible for that product, because the more you paid for the product, the bottom line for the bank,
sure,
your commission was better, the bottom line for the bank was better, and you know, that just, it wasn't something that I felt I had signed up for.
Well, they're very clever, aren't they, the banks, in terms of how they create their products for you.
They're clever in how they create them. They're clever in how they script them. They're clever in how they present them to the public.
Yeah.
Their wording is meticulous. Yeah, they do a very good job. And the thing is, you know, to the bank's credit, they spend a lot of effort coming out with some very good product. There is great product out there.
But is there, you know, do they gear their services appropriately to women? I mean, there are many banks, obviously, out there, but in your experience, do you find that as women, are they really meeting our needs? Do they understand them?
Well, when I made the decision to leave banking and start this, going out and doing mortgages for women, I felt in my gut that it wasn't for women. And so I did a lot of research. I spent a lot of money. I spent 2 years of my life doing the research and doing focus groups with women and talking about their money. I read a ton of material. I probably read over 300 books. I stocked Faith popcorn across North America, and I gathered a lot of data, on how women view their finances. And at that time I realized I'm onto something. Like, my gut was not lying. In fact, my gut underestimated the problem. And how women saw themselves, there was two distinct groups. And not to get too into detail, but one group almost saw themselves as proud they had the ability to go into a bank and ask for what they wanted, which is sort of counterproductive, and the other group fearful of going into a bank to ask for what they needed. So I knew that the data showed me that I could form a company that spoke their language, that presented the products of the bank, and allowed women to make their own decision.
Because, you know, buying a home is probably, experts will say, is one of the most stressful things that we can do. And it's, you know, as a single woman, if we could talk about single women and mortgages and home ownership for a moment, it's even more stressful because most women are not handy, or most women are not handy. We haven't been taught to be handy.
That's correct.
We can do certain things, but you know, it's so is this something that holds women back from home ownership?
I think, yes, certainly the fear factor of what you're walking into. But interestingly enough, single women are 2 times more likely to buy real estate than a single man.
Is it that interesting? Why is that?
Well, I think for women, you know, it's when I saw those statistics, I really wanted to know why, and you know, you delve into it and you find that women like to nest. We like to paint the wall. Look at that wall. If I want that wall to be beige or green or orange, I can paint that wall any color I want. But we have a nesting instinct. Maybe it comes from a creativity side as well, because we can create our space, and we like to be able to see what our vision looks like. And so maybe that's part of it. The other thing, at the entry level of the job market, it's very level. The salaries between men and women are very, very level. So you're seeing that change now. Women coming out of school men coming out of school, young men, young women, when they go into the job market, the salary levels are the same. It's as you get up, they differ, but at the entry level, they're the same. So you see more of those women investing in real estate.
With the women that come to you, then, do you find that there are a lot of single women, widowed women?
Yeah, my clientele runs the gamut, Shannon.
Yeah.
They are single, they're married, they're separated, they're divorced, they're widowed.
Yeah.
They run the gamut, but by and large, most of them want understanding of how this is going to work. They want to choose their own mortgage product. They want to know that what that's going to look like going forward. You know, it was interesting when I was in the bank, because I'm Virgo, I guess, I'm going to put it down to that. I would track my statistics, and I saw the number of women buying real estate growing, and I was really intrigued by it. So I started to pay attention to the conversations I was having. And the conversation when a woman would come in was the details, the minutia of the mortgage. It's a legal, firm and binding contract. What am I getting into? How do I get out of it? What happens? What happens? What if, what if, what if? And when we could address that, and you could go to the worst case scenario, they would say, okay, you know, if that's the worst that can happen, I'm going to be okay. The other thing is that banks tend to migrate you to a 5-year closed mortgage.
Right.
And that may not be a great idea, depending on, you know, your situation. But the bank makes a lot of money if you go into a 5-year mortgage. The person selling you the product makes a lot of money if you go into a 5-year mortgage.
So, Marcy, why wouldn't a five-year mortgage be a good idea?
Well, if you go on to the statistics of single women that finish a 5-year mortgage, they're very small. So now you're going to pay a penalty to get out of it.
Oh, you mean so it's women trying to get out of the 5 years?
That's right.
It's a long time.
It
5
is a
years
long
for
time.
anything is a long time.
It's a long time. I have people ask me about 10-year mortgages, and I say, you know, 10-year commitments are for marriages, not for banks.
Yeah.
You know, a lot can change in a market in 10 years.
Well, how often does the average person buy and sell homes in Canada?
You know, that if some statistics, and they vary, okay? They vary
Yeah.
from market to market.
Sure.
So if you're in a GTA, a Toronto market, the statistics show that most people will buy and sell every 5 to 7 years. If single women, I mean, anything can happen. If you're 31 or you're 27 and you're buying an apartment or a condo or a little house, or, you know, those are a crucial 5 years of your life. You know, you may meet somebody, you may, you know, get a better job offer in another country. I mean, the world is your oyster in that time of your life. So to take a 5-year commitment, you know, maybe that's not what you should be doing. Although that could change. If the market seems to be increasing, if rates are going up and you're in a very low rate, that can become a selling feature of your property. So you have to look at everything.
Now, Marcy, it's time for a break, and this means it's the Good to Know Minute. And you know, I know you've got a great tip for my viewers.
Well, my tip would be, if you're thinking of home ownership at all, whether you're saying that could never happen, I could never do it, or whether you're saying, yes, I want to do it, my tip is this. Get to know how that transaction works. Get to know that it's a firm and legal binding contract. It comes with a set of conditions, and there's a criteria for getting into it that's going to make it safe and sound for you. You owe it to yourself to find out everything you can on how that transaction's going to look if and when you're ready. And you know what you have to do for a down payment. You know what you have to do for income. You know what that's going to look like at the end of the day when you close that mortgage. And if you do that, you will see that you can do this. Anybody can do it. So now, after you've explored all those options, if you decide, I'm never going to own a home, that now becomes your choice. And there are other ways to build wealth other than real estate. And everybody, my golden rule, everybody I haven't met the person yet that isn't worth a half an hour of my time. And so, you know, you need to sit in front of somebody and you need to learn what that transaction is all about.
Well, thank you, Marcy.
Thank you, Shannon.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Marcy Berg, founder of Mortgages for Women. So stay right there. Welcome back to the show. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Marcy Berg, who is the founder of Mortgages for Women. We're talking all things mortgages. Now, you just had a dream come true. You met the one and only Gloria Steinem.
Yes, I did, and that was absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
I mean, she has been an inspiration for me since I was in high school, and I would read her magazine, Ms. Magazine, and you know, under the covers in my room with the lights off. Good Catholic girls.
With a flashlight? Did you have a flashlight?
Of course.
Oh yeah, I did too.
Catholic girls don't read that. Gloria Steinem, right? Yeah, okay. But no, I met her. She was in Toronto, and I got to meet her, and I heard her speak, and it was life-changing. Like, I knew I was so excited to go and hear her speak and meet her. And then when I actually got there and I heard her message, you just walked out that day, and I knew in my heart I wasn't going to be the same person I was when I woke up that morning.
What did she say to you?
Well, she said a lot of things, but I guess the message that stuck with me the most is that, you know, she said, I have a 21-year-old daughter, and my 21-year-old daughter goes to university, and she takes women's studies. And my daughter speaks to me about, you know, the women's lib movement. And my hair curls on the back of my neck. You know, I just think, oh, and I'm always defensive of what we went through. And Gloria Steinem said this. She said, you cannot look to younger girls today for gratitude for what we went through. She said, you must look at them and understand they have their own struggles, and it's more important for us to be in touch with them than for them to be in touch with us. And I think that was life-changing for me, because my clientele is 27 years old, and honestly, she couldn't have given that message to a better person that day than me.
So, be grateful for your wisdom.
Be grateful for your wisdom, and she hates the word mentor, because she said mentor denotes a one-way street, and we have as much to learn from them as they have to learn from us. We fought that battle. It's over. Don't go back. Don't revisit it. Just move on, move forward, and it's up to us to watch what their struggles are.
Now, one of the interesting things about your company, I think, is one of the many interesting things, is your slogan.
Yes, I love
I love this, because Prince Charming is not a mortgage strategy.
That's right, Shannon, and
so,
he's not.
And so why did you choose this slogan?
Well, I tested a few slogans. I had some focus groups done, and we tested a few. Now, this one, it wasn't always the most popular with every group, but it certainly had the most passion. People get it. Well, Prince Charming is not a mortgage strategy. And I think that it doesn't matter where you are in your life, you probably are pretty sure that's true. Those days when we thought we would marry and someone would take care of us, those are gone. It is so important, especially in today's world where the stats are 50% of marriages end in divorce. So do you think it's not important to know what the financial situation is in your house?
Sure.
I mean, you have to be engaged in those conversations. That money conversation is not a fun one to have inside of a marriage, but it's a necessary one.
And that's one that every marriage has.
That's
that money
right.
conversation.
Well,
no matter where you're at.
Well,
no?
You're hoping they're having them, but I see a lot of people in my office that you think, well, maybe you should have had it. So, but yeah, and the interesting thing about the slogan, Prince Charming is not a mortgage strategy, I get a lot of email from men who love that slogan, because
really?
They say to me, we don't want to be
right.
the mortgage strategy. So women have to be engaged in that decision.
So the key here is for women to empower themselves financially, clearly.
Yes, financial literacy for women is so important. You have to understand and there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of evidence showing up now that everybody needs to be financially literate. But if you look at the statistics, where the weaknesses are is in the students with their debt load, for sure. And the second one is with women, when the marriage breaks down, or when there's trouble, or when they're widowed. I see women who are widowed and have had no financial counseling, they have no financial literacy. They're devastated by having to pick up the pieces and put this back together and understand it.
Let alone, dealing with the grieving process.
The grieving
and whatnot.
process, exactly. Exactly.
I came across this stat by the Canadian Research Institute for the Advancement of Women that 1 in 7 women in Canada is currently living in poverty.
Yes.
I don't know how they define poverty.
Well,
but
the definition of poverty is certainly a moving line, and it's a moving target because it varies from market to market. So somebody in Toronto, their poverty line might be different than somebody living in Cornwall or in Labrador. It varies, so it's really hard to pinpoint where that poverty line is. But yes, that's the reality. I mean, that's where we have to start. And living in poverty is it has to be dealt with. But I think financial literacy is going to be really important to helping women get empowered to get out of poverty, to understand how money works. And it's not an easy subject. It's not taught in school. For me personally, it was intuitive, but it isn't for everybody. I was never taught it. It just it just was an intuitive thing for me.
But you're right. There's a lot of information out there. You can Google. Everything's any information you want is available.
Absolutely.
On the internet somewhere.
Absolutely. And I spend a lot of time on the internet trying to find factual information. So if you're looking for information, anybody out there, they can get a hold of me, and I'll send them the link or what they have, where they can go and find what they're looking for.
So have you seen much change then since in mortgages since the economic meltdown then?
Yes, certainly the criteria is tightening up, which is not a bad thing, Shannon. There was a lot of people getting into mortgages that perhaps they couldn't afford. A mortgage...
And with a zero down payment at one point, which is no longer. Yeah,
Second City did a show called 0% Down, 100% Screwed. And I think that just about sums that one up. So we'll leave it to Second City. But that's, that's tough. And cash back, understand that cash back. I have people in my office all the time that they'll say, well, the penalty to get out of my mortgage is $15,000. And all I can say is, did you take cash back? Because if you don't fulfill the contract, you're paying that money back.
Yeah, that's right.
So those are the details that you need to understand.
Well, what are the benefits and drawbacks of having a mortgage?
Well,
that's just for women.
One of the benefits to a mortgage is this: you're building wealth. Okay, so you're building wealth. You're using someone else's money to build some wealth for yourself, if you understand how that product works. The other nice thing about a mortgage, and I'm not talking about a line of credit here, but a mortgage doesn't rate on your credit bureau.
Okay.
Okay, so that's really important for you to know. You can miss 3 mortgage payments, almost lose your house, bring it back up to date, and you still keep the house, and it doesn't affect your credit rating. But Shannon, if you miss one $10 minimum payment on a credit card, that's a whole different story.
Well, isn't that interesting? Now, that information I did not know.
Yeah, there you go. There's something that people need to understand, how to keep that credit ratings are important, and I would love to just do an entire workshop on what the credit rating, how it rates, what it looks like, what when you use your credit card, what does that do over there to your credit. I could go on and on with that, because it's absolutely the way that credit rating is formed is not fair at all.
Now, there's some people that I've been talking to believe that we're in Toronto anyway, that we're heading into a downturn in real estate in the next year to 2 years. What do you think about that?
I think that's a tough call, and I think that the enemy in the economy right now is inflation. So if we go into a period of inflation, we're going to see a lot of problems, and real estate will be affected. But the thing about real estate is this: if it's a long-term buy, hold, it's a debt that needs to be paid off. So if you follow the rules, if you go in with a safe and sound start, you will be fine. You will be absolutely fine. And you will also, if you go in safe and sound, as I like to say, you will have your plan in place to say, okay, if there is a period of inflation, if there is a real estate market downturn, what am I going to personally do? You know, because that's the biggest asset you're ever going to have. The nice thing about real estate, as opposed to being in a mutual fund, is that you can still live in it. You still have shelter. You're sheltered from the storm. So, you know.
Well, Marcy, we unfortunately are out of time, but I've really enjoyed having you here, and you know, an important topic for women.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you are going to be talking to, I will be speaking with, and you're going to be hearing from Janet Auty Carlisle, life coach, who's dedicated to helping women in transition. So stay right there, and many thanks to Marcy Berg for being here today talking about mortgages for women. So we'll take a break and stay right there.